Welcome to the Stoic Golden Tribe, where enduring wisdom meets the strength of presence, and where we uncover the truths modern society refuses to teach men. Today's message is a fire every man needs to hear, because one wrong move can destroy how a woman sees you, not just for a moment, but for good. There are things you can do or fail to do that make her lose the deepest part of what makes her respect and desire you as a man. We're going to dive into the hard truths, backed by historical wisdom, real stories of love and ruin, and powerful insight you won't hear anywhere else. So if you're ready to build your strength, sharpen your mind, and lead with power, you're in the right place. Like, share, and subscribe if you're a man who refuses to settle for weakness. Drop a comment below. Let us know where you're listening from and what message hit the hardest. Let's build this tribe together. Chapter 1. The Silent Surrender. How a man loses his frame and forfeits respect. A woman doesn't lose respect for a man all at once. It happens in layers, quietly, gradually, and most dangerously, invisibly. The first crack almost never shows because she still smiles, she still touches you. But something subtle has changed. Her spirit begins to pull away. Not in anger, but in disappointment. And that moment, the moment she begins to question your strength as a man, is where everything starts to unravel. 1. The first mistake. Abandoning your mission for her approval. Throughout history, the men women admired most were men of unshakable purpose. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic Roman emperor. Though he deeply loved his wife Faustina, he never wavered from his duties as a ruler, a philosopher, and a man called to higher things. His strength didn't come from needing her approval. It came from staying grounded in truth. Yet today, many men flip the script. They abandon their mission to please her. They soften their edge to avoid arguments. They stop leading and start seeking validation. They trade respect for peace, not realizing they're losing both. The tragedy? She might have once admired your drive, your focus, your fire. But the moment you put her at the center of your identity, she can no longer look up to you. She may still care for you. She may even still love you. But respect? That vanishes when you vanish from your masculine path. Example: Napoleon and Josephine. A love that turned to contempt. Let's take a look at one of history's most fascinating love stories, and how quickly admiration can die when a man compromises himself. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the greatest military minds in history, was once hopelessly in love with Joséphine de Beauharnais. In the beginning, he was bold, ambitious, and unapologetically dominant, and she was drawn to him like a flame. But after marrying her, Napoleon grew emotionally dependent. He wrote her dozens of love letters pleading for affection, confessing weakness, and putting her on a pedestal. She, meanwhile, remained distant, even took lovers while he was at war. Why? Because the man she once respected, the powerful general she admired, began showing a side that surrendered emotional control. He became needy, obsessive, lost in her. What happened next? Her respect faded, his obsession deepened, and in the end, he divorced her. But the damage to his heart was already done. Men never forget. A woman may enjoy being adored, but she cannot respect a man who abandons his self-respect in the process. 3. Modern men. The epidemic of nice guy energy. You've seen it everywhere, maybe even in the mirror at one point. The man who does everything right, listens, accommodates, avoids conflict, tries to be the perfect boyfriend, but inside, he's shrinking. He's silencing himself to stay accepted. He's outsourcing his emotional state to her moods. He thinks he's winning love, but he's losing respect. This nice guy energy kills attraction, and because it's not based in strength, it's based in fear. Fear of losing her, fear of being rejected, fear of standing alone. But here's the truth. A woman respects the man who can walk away more than the one who will beg to stay. The inner king, power, boundaries, and emotional mastery. What makes a man unshakable in her eyes? It's not looks, not money, not charm. It's his center, his emotional strength, his ability to say, "This is who I am, this is where I'm going, and I'd love you to walk with me, but I will not betray my path to keep you beside me." That is the energy of a king. And a woman may not always like it in the moment, but she will always respect it. And in the long run, that respect becomes devotion. 5. When you apologize for your masculinity, there's a trend in today's culture, and it's dangerous. Men are being trained to apologize for being men, for being direct, for being assertive, for wanting purpose, leadership, and respect. And it doesn't stop with society, that it seeps into relationships. Men shrink their voice, hide their ambition, temper their strength, all to make her feel more comfortable. But here's the truth. The moment you apologize for your masculine essence, the moment she starts to see you as less of a man. Let's be clear, we're not talking about being arrogant, controlling, or disrespectful. We're talking about being solid, being clear, being a man who knows who he is and doesn't soften his edges just to avoid making waves. When you betray your masculine core to be liked, she might tolerate you, but she'll never fully trust you. And where there is no trust, there is no respect. 6. Historical reflection. Samson and Delilah. A strength betrayed. Let's take a lesson from ancient scripture, the story of Samson and Delilah. Samson was chosen, gifted with supernatural strength, a leader among men. But he had a weakness, a longing for a woman's love that blinded him to danger. Delilah, under the command of his enemies, asked repeatedly for the secret to his strength. Samson resisted, until eventually he gave in. He told her the truth. She cut his hair while he slept. His strength was gone. His enemies captured him. His eyes were gouged out. His legacy was reduced to a cautionary tale. Now ask yourself, was it love or was it surrender? Samson didn't just lose his power, he gave it away. Because he craved her approval more than he protected his purpose. Every man has his Delilah. She may not cut your hair, but she will test your strength. Not because she wants to destroy you, but because she wants to see if what you say you are is real. And when you fold under pressure, when you abandon strength to gain comfort, you don't just lose her respect, you lose your identity. 7. Emotional reactivity when you let her control the frame. One of the fastest ways to kill respect in a woman's eyes is emotional reactivity. When she yells and you yell louder, when she withdraws and you chase, when she tests you and you panic, you've now made her the emotional leader of the relationship. Respect requires frame control. And frame control isn't about manipulation, it's about grounding. It's being the calm in the storm, not the one who gets swept away by it. A man who loses emotional control is a man who loses the upper hand in every dynamic. Not because she wants to dominate you, but because she can't trust a man who's tossed around by feelings. Every emotional outburst says, "I can't lead myself, so I can't lead you." 8. Real story, the WWDSI soldier and the letter she never sent. During World War II, thousands of soldiers wrote letters from the front lines to the women they loved. One particular story stands out. A young American soldier named David, stationed in Europe, wrote every week to his fiancée back home. He poured out his heart, promised a future, said he couldn't wait to return and build a life together. She, at first, responded with warmth. But as the months passed, she grew distant. And one day, her letter arrived, the last one. She told him she had fallen for someone else, that she respected him as a man, but that his letters had become too emotional, too desperate, too dependent. Her words, "You stopped being the strong man I admired and started being the man who needed me too much." David was devastated. But here's what happened next. Instead of folding, he stopped writing. He focused, rose through the ranks, led men through the harshest battles in Europe. 2 years later, when the war ended, he returned home, decorated, transformed, untouchable. She reached out again, but by then it was too late. He had become the man she once wanted, because he no longer needed her approval to be that man. 9. Modern application. Stop explaining, start leading. Men today are conditioned to over-explain themselves. You feel the need to justify your goals, to explain why you're busy, to soften every no with apologies. But masculine energy doesn't over-justify. It sets direction. If you're always explaining yourself to her, you're putting her in the position of judge, not partner, not companion, but authority. And the moment she sees herself as your emotional superior, she can no longer look up to you as a man. Respect is not demanded, but it's also not begged. It's earned by presence, reinforced by purpose, and protected by boundaries. 10. Final word, respect is lost when leadership is abandoned. At the core of every woman is a deep, primal question. Can I trust this man with my heart, my body, my future? She doesn't ask it with words, she asks it with her energy, her tests, her reactions. And your answer isn't in what you say, Hound, it's in what you do. If you abandon your mission to gain her attention, if you overreact to her emotions instead of leading with strength, if you collapse under pressure or lose your voice just to keep her happy, she may stay for a while, but her respect, the foundation of attraction, will vanish. So choose today. Be the man who leads with ta'uth, who walks with discipline, who doesn't need permission to walk in power. Because when you become that man, her respect won't just return. It will deepen into something far more powerful. Loyalty, submission, devotion. But it starts with you. Chapter 2. The Weak Man's War. How compromise, comfort, and passivity destroy her respect. A man doesn't lose her respect in one great betrayal. He loses it in tiny compromises, stacked day by day, until he becomes unrecognizable, not to her, but to himself. He becomes passive, tolerant of disrespect, afraid of conflict, addicted to peace, even if that peace costs his dignity. And she sees it, not immediately, but over time, the fire in her eyes dies. And when a woman stops looking up to you, it's only a matter of time before she stops looking at you. 1. The comfort trap. Why familiarity kills masculine. Polarity. Men are wired for conquest. Women are wired for security. But modern relationships have confused this dance. Many men, after getting the girl, stop pushing, they get comfortable, they put down the sword, and then they wonder why she starts pulling away. But here's the reality. Comfort kills polarity. It turns fire into ash. It turns the warrior into the pet. It turns the leader into the roommate. And no matter how sweet or loving a woman may be, she cannot respect a man who stops growing. Because deep down, she doesn't want to feel like the only one evolving. She wants to look at her man and see someone just out of reach, a man in motion, becoming more. Second historical reflection, the fall of King Edward VIII. From crown to captive history holds a powerful example in King Edward VIII of England. Born into royalty, trained to lead a kingdom, but he fell in love with Wallis Simpson, a twice-divorced American woman, and chose her over his crown. To some it looked romantic, a king giving it all up for love. But behind the scenes, things were different. After his abdication, Edward lost not only his throne, but his purpose. He became a man of leisure, wandering, partying, living in exile. And Wallis? In her private letters, she spoke of his clinginess, his lack of challenge. She called him a little boy and said she often longed for a real man's presence. And this wasn't just about love, it was about respect. And once a woman sees a man abandon his mission for her, the gravitational pull between them breaks. A man must never give up his kingdom to gain her heart, because if he does, he will lose both. 3. The danger of passive love. Why being nice is not the same as being strong. Let's get something straight. Being nice is not a virtue when it comes at the cost of leadership. If you're always agreeing, if you never challenge her, if you let her moods dictate your decisions, then you've stopped being her man and started being her mirror. And no woman wants to date a reflection of herself. Passivity in a man creates anxiety in a woman because she knows, consciously or not, that if you can't stand up to her, you can't stand for her when it counts. She'll test you, she'll raise her voice, she'll push, and if you fold, she'll never feel safe in your leadership again, not because she's evil, not because she wants control, but because she's wired to feel secure in a man's ability to hold frame under pressure. 4. Real story. Eleanor Roosevelt and Franklin D. Roosevelt. Leadership through fire. Contrast Edward's story with that of Franklin D. Roosevelt, America's 32nd president, and his wife, Eleanor. Their marriage was tested in every possible way: infidelity, war, illness, public scrutiny. But Eleanor never stopped respecting Franklin. Why? Because despite his flaws, Roosevelt never stopped leading. He led a nation through the Great Depression and World War II. He governed from a wheelchair, paralyzed by polio, but never surrendered his strength. Eleanor once said, "He may not have always been faithful to me, but he was always faithful to the mission." That statement reveals something powerful. A man's faithfulness to his mission is what earns lasting respect, even when he is flawed. Women can forgive mistakes. They can overlook imperfection, but they cannot admire a man who stops growing, stops leading, and becomes emotionally dependent. The leadership gap. Why she starts acting like the man. In the absence of masculine leadership, she will step into the void, not because she wants to, but because someone must. And when she does, everything changes. She makes the plans, she sets the tone, she manages the money, the future, the frame. And you just go with the flow. But here's the hard truth. She doesn't want to lead, she wants to trust. But if you don't step up, she will, out of necessity. And the more she leads, the less she respects you. This isn't just about roles, it's about polarity. A woman in her feminine thrives under the presence of a man in his masculine, but when that masculine disappears, her femininity does too. And all that's left is two people out of alignment, each resenting the other. 6. Biblical insight. Adam, Eve, and the absence of presence. Let's go back to the garden. Many overlook this, but when Eve took the fruit in the book of Genesis, Adam wasn't away. He was right there, silent, passive, unmoving. He watched the moment unfold and said nothing. That wasn't just the first sin. It was the first moment a man abandoned leadership. And what happened? Eve took charge. She stepped out of order. The world changed. That pattern hasn't disappeared. When a man refuses to act, when he delays, hesitates, hides behind comfort, he doesn't just lose his woman's respect. He throws the entire structure of the relationship out of alignment. Passivity breeds chaos, and a woman will never trust a man who disappears when leadership is needed most. 7. When you stop correcting disrespect, you train her to lose you. There's a moment in every relationship where she'll test you, not out of malice, but instinct. She wants to know, is this man strong enough to handle me at my worst and correct me when I'm out of line? Many men fail that test. She disrespects him, subtly or overtly, and he laughs it off. She raises her voice, rolls her eyes, crosses the line, and he tolerates it. He thinks he's being patient. But what he's really doing is teaching her that there are no consequences for treating him like a boy. Men, hear this clearly. What you allow, you train. What you ignore, you affirm. And what you tolerate will grow into resentment, both in you and in her. Correction isn't about being controlling. It's about being a man with boundaries, with standards, and with the strength to uphold them. If she can speak to you like a child, if she can mock you in public, if she can disrespect your vision, your time, your purpose, and you say nothing, she won't feel like she won. She'll feel like she lost her man. 8. The myth of emotional equality. We've been sold a lie, that relationships must be equal in every way, equal emotion, equal energy, equal weight. But that's not how polarity works. Masculine and feminine are not equals in expression. They are complements. The masculine is stable, consistent, grounded. The feminine is fluid, emotional, expressive. If both of you are emotionally reactive, someone has to rise above. If both of you are confused about where things are going, someone has to lead. And if neither of you wants to own the outcome, the relationship is destined to collapse. Men, you are not her emotional twin. You are her anchor. And that means when the storm hits, you don't match her chaos. You bring the stillness that restores order. That's not dominance. That's design. 9. True masculine revival. The story of Carl Jung and Emma. One of the most profound stories of transformation is the marriage of Carl Jung, the great psychologist, and his wife, Emma. Early in their marriage, Jung was distant, obsessed with work, emotionally unavailable. Emma felt unseen and began pulling away. But instead of chasing, Jung did something powerful. He didn't collapse into emotional apology. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He turned inward. He rebuilt his masculine center. He faced his own shadow, mastered his emotions, deepened his vision, and rose. When he reapproached Emma, he did not come as a wounded man seeking affection. He came as a centered man offering presence. And what happened? Her respect reignited, not because he changed for her, but because he became the man he was born to be. That story is every man's hope. You don't have to stay weak. You don't have to stay passive. You can revive your strength. And when you do, her energy will follow. 10. Final words. Kill the weak man before he kills your legacy. There is a weak man inside every man, and he must die. The man who avoids conflict, who seeks validation, who trades power for peace, who fears her emotions more than he fears losing his own soul. If that man lives too long, your woman will leave you, even if she stays. Because a woman can't truly follow a man she doesn't respect, and she can't respect a man who's given up his sword. So sharpen your edge. Reclaim your mission. Speak truth. Set boundaries. Master your emotions, and never, ever surrender your leadership for her comfort. Because when you stop leading, she stops loving. And when you rise in truth, she will rise in devotion. Chapter 3. Emotional slavery, how weakness. Masquerading as love pushes her away. Love is a powerful force, but when misunderstood, it becomes a trap. Many men today confuse love with emotional dependency. They believe the more they give, the more they chase, the more they emotionally attach themselves to a woman. The more she will love and stay, but that's not love. That's emotional slavery. And what's worse, it's one of the fastest, most silent killers of a woman's respect. Because the moment she feels that you love her more than you love your mission, the moment she becomes your emotional center instead of your companion, she stops seeing you as a man and starts seeing you as a boy who's trying to earn her validation. 1. When love turns into emotional begging. Let's be honest, a lot of modern men fall into relationships thinking that if they just love hard enough, stay loyal, buy gifts, write poems, text good morning every day, she'll be theirs forever. But what happens? The more they give, the more she pulls away. The more they express need, the more she loses interest. Why? Because masculine energy does not chase validation. It attracts respect. A man who loves from a place of wholeness is attractive, but a man who loves from a place of emptiness is repelling. You may think she's pulling away because she doesn't value loyalty, but often she's pulling away because you've turned your loyalty into emotional neediness. And that's not love. That's a burden. Second historical reflection. Napoleon and Josephine. Love without power is weakness. Take the story of Napoleon Bonaparte and Josephine de Beauharnais. Napoleon, one of the greatest military minds in history, fell madly in love with Josephine. He wrote her hundreds of letters, often obsessed, pleading, pouring out his soul. She, on the other hand, cheated with other men repeatedly. Why? Because despite his power in the world, Napoleon surrendered emotional leadership in the relationship. He loved her more than she respected him. Eventually, he divorced her. Not out of hatred, but out of clarity. His greatness began to return the moment he refocused on his mission, not her affection. Let this be a warning to modern men. When you elevate a woman above your purpose, you dethrone yourself. No woman can hold the emotional weight of being your god. 3. Emotional overexposure. When you share. Too much, too soon, too often. We live in a culture that praises emotional vulnerability, and yes, there is strength in being honest, but there's also a line. When you become emotionally overexposed, and when you dump every fear, every doubt, every childhood wound on her lap, you're not bonding, you're bleeding, and she may listen. But deep down, she begins to wonder, can this man actually carry me, or is he still trying to be carried? Masculine vulnerability must come from a place of stability, not chaos. You don't open your soul because you're lost. You open it because you've conquered it, and you want to share the treasure. Remember this. A man's emotions are not his enemy, but his emotions are also not her responsibility. 4. Real story, Johnny Cash and June Carter, a love that withstood fire. One of the most famous love stories of the 20th century is Johnny Cash and June Carter. Johnny was a man of deep emotion, broken past, addiction, inner war. But he didn't approach June as a broken man asking her to heal him. He came with presence, with confidence. Even in his mess, he led. He owned his path. He didn't blame her for his demons. And June, she followed. She respected. Not because he was perfect, but because he never surrendered his masculine edge. She once said, "He was a man that filled up the room with fire. He didn't ask me to hold him up. He asked me to walk beside him." That's what women crave. Not emotional dependence, but emotional strength. 5. The trap of making her your therapist. Too many men turn their girlfriends or wives into therapists. They unload their deepest fears. They cry to her weekly. They vent about their problems, not occasionally, but constantly. And then they wonder why she stops looking at them the same. Listen, your woman should be your partner. She should support you, encourage you, cheer for you. But she should not become your primary emotional outlet. That is the job of your brotherhood, your coach, your faith, and your own inner masculine mastery. If she becomes your only outlet, she becomes your savior. And when a woman has to save you, she can't submit to you. 26. Biblical reference, David and Bathsheba. Power, misused, and masculinity. Broken in the Bible, King David, a man after God's own heart, made a fatal emotional move. He saw Bathsheba, desired her, and took her, even though she was married. He then arranged for her husband to be killed to cover his sin. What's the deeper truth here? David, at that time, had stopped leading with purpose. He wasn't at war, he wasn't building, he was idle, watching from the rooftop. And in his emotional idleness, he acted from weakness. He used power to chase passion, and it broke his household, shattered his legacy, and nearly destroyed the kingdom. When a man uses emotion to satisfy himself rather than serve his purpose, he loses both the woman and the mission. 7. The masculine center. Why you must become the safe place. Every woman desires a safe place, but safety isn't just physical protection. It's emotional strength, it's mental clarity, it's spiritual presence. You are the calm in the storm. If she's anxious and you're anxious too, if she's overwhelmed and you spiral with her, if she's moody and you match her instability, she doesn't feel seen, she feels unsafe, because now the one person who's supposed to be the mountain has become a fellow wave. Be the mountain, not cold, not silent, but rooted. Not only will she respect you, she will soften around you. Chapter 4. What happens when a man abandons his mission for a woman? There is no faster way for a man to lose his power, his purpose, and a woman's respect than to abandon his mission for her approval. In every story, whether myth, scripture, or history, the fall of a man rarely begins with evil. It begins with distraction, with a quiet turning of the heart away from purpose and toward comfort. Men who were built to conquer kingdoms end up chasing text messages. Men who once moved with fire now wait anxiously for a reply. Men who were leaders become followers in their own homes. Why? Because when a man makes a woman the destination, instead of a companion on the journey, he slowly becomes something she no longer recognizes or respects. 1. You were not built to orbit her life. A woman does not want you to orbit her. She doesn't want you texting her 24/7. She doesn't want you cancelling your goals for her plans. She doesn't want you checking in every hour to ask, "Are you okay? Did I do something wrong?" She may say she wants attention, but what she really wants is a man with gravity, someone who moves with purpose, someone whose world is so strong, so directional, that she wants to be pulled into it, not be the center of it. The moment you make her your entire life, she starts wondering if you have one, and without a life outside of her, she cannot feel safe inside yours. Second historical warning. Samson and Delilah. Power abandoned for affection. One of the most tragic love stories in history is the biblical tale of Samson and Delilah. Samson was chosen, strong beyond measure, feared by armies, but he had a weakness, not physical, but emotional. He was obsessed with the wrong woman. Delilah, sensing his vulnerability, used affection to draw him in. She didn't overpower him. She simply asked for his secret. And Samson, a man destined for greatness, gave up the source of his strength for a moment of emotional intimacy. What happened? He lost his hair. He lost his power. He lost his vision, literally and spiritually. And he died in chains, broken by the very thing he could not control, his need to please a woman. The lesson is clear. Your power lies in your purpose. The moment you surrender it, you begin to die. 3. She tests you because she wants you to lead. Here's the hard truth. Many men don't understand when she challenges you, when she questions you, when she pulls away emotionally, she's not always trying to reject you. Sometimes she's testing to see if you'll stay standing. She's asking, without words, "Are you still the man I can follow? Will you break under pressure? Will you trade your mission for my moods?" When you abandon yourself to fix her feelings, you fail the test. But when you stay grounded, not cold, not cruel, but clear, she feels safe again. She may not admit it, but in her soul, she's drawn closer to your fire. And that fire only burns when your mission leads, not your emotions. 4. The silent collapse of a man without vision. Men without vision become emotional beggars. They start saying things like, "She used to love me. She's changed. I gave her everything." But here's the truth. You didn't give her leadership, you didn't give her direction, you didn't give her a man with something bigger than her to serve. Women are designed to follow men who are following something greater. If she is your mission, she will eventually leave you for one. But if you have a mission, she will either follow you or respectfully move aside, and you will still remain a man of fire. The example of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who led with purpose. Marcus Aurelius was not just a Roman emperor. He was a philosopher, a warrior, a father, a leader who wrote some of the most powerful reflections on discipline and inner mastery the world has ever seen. He had a wife, children, pain, heartbreak, but he never let any of it distract him from his mission. He ruled during plagues, during war, during betrayal, and still, he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." His strength didn't come from ignoring love, but from never letting love become his master. You can love deeply, you can be loyal, but never let your identity be written by someone else's affection. That's not love, that's slavery. 6. What happens when she realizes you have no mission? When a woman realizes you have no mission beyond her, she feels something she can't always explain. Grief. Grief that the man she once admired has become the man she now manages. She doesn't want to be your reason for waking up in the morning. She wants to watch you rise for something greater and know she gets to walk with you through it. And if she sees you drop your crown just to carry her shoes, she won't feel loved. She'll feel burdened. Men, hear this. She cannot follow a man who follows her. So stop chasing, start building. 7. Final words, the man she will never forget. The man she never forget is the man who never forgets his mission. He loves her, but doesn't need her to validate his worth. He feels deeply, but doesn't make her the center of his world. He honors her, but stays faithful to his path, even when it costs him comfort. He's not afraid to walk alone. He's not afraid to say no. He's not afraid to lose the woman when, if it means he keeps his soul. And in doing so, he becomes the kind of man she prays returns, not because he begged, but because he became. If this message stirred something in you, if you're ready to reclaim your emotional discipline, your mission, and your legacy, like this video, share it with a brother, subscribe for more truth, and drop a comment below telling us what part hit you the hardest. Your journey has already begun. We'll be right here, walking with you. Until next time, stand tall, lead strong, and never trade your crown for comfort.